Most law enforcement officers will never quit their job. And this reason why will actually surprise you. So, my name is Gideon Tekla. I'm a retired police sergeant turned full-time entrepreneur. If you've been following my channel, you know a little bit about my backstory. But ultimately, I ended up quitting the 9 to 5. And I say 9 to 5, it was really 95 hours a week. I was a police sergeant in Oakland, California. And when it came down to it, it was kind of a tough decision. It was kind of a tough decision. And the reason I bring this up today is because, I just came back from a 2-month trip to Africa, right? It's phenomenal. Absolutely relaxed. And I was coming back and it really hit me. I was like, man, years ago, I could have never imagined this. I could have absolutely never imagined spending months overseas somewhere in a third world country, not worrying about everything. But ultimately it came down to a decision. So let me break down a little bit what typically happens. So when it comes down to any career, specifically law enforcement though, what typically ends up happening is you have these different phases or these different stages of the career. So typically in the beginning, you're super motivated. You're talking about, man, you're excited, you have a mission, and usually that mission is protecting and serving, and your coworkers, because you get this really good bond, I guess you can say. It's very deep. There's nothing that can describe it because ultimately you guys are facing danger together. So what typically ends up happening is in most big cities, unfortunately, and I think this is synonymous or, this actually happens across the US, is typically you run into the politics. You run into the politics and you kind of have the veil that was over your eyes kind of revealed where you're like, oh, I can't really do as much as I really want to. What ends up typically happening is a lot of people won't have the best financial situations and they're realizing that this is a really good career. It pays well, medical benefits, etc. And if you do things out of principles, well, what ends up happening is you actually sacrifice or you threaten that job security. So you're split into two positions. On number one, you can actually do things out of principle and you might actually get fired because, it is what it is. But on the other side, you can kind of just conform and just not really do much, but then you lose the passion. So that's where the jaded aspect starts to come in because you're like, man, screw this place, etc. And even if you're not in law enforcement, I'm sure you'll see those coworkers or sometimes you face this where you're like, man, this job or this company or this organization, it doesn't represent who I truly am. So what ends up happening is once you lose that long-term satisfaction, you start looking for a way out. You kind of have that foot. It's almost like you're at the pool and you have your toes in the water. You're kind of like, I want to go in, but it's kind of cold. It might be deep, etc. So there's the fear aspect. And I ran into the exact same thing. I actually positioned myself accordingly, financially, that I could leave, but it was just scary because there's the unknown. You actually lose that mission, that familiarity, that comfort. So here's what you have to do to actually take that step. And just to be clear, just be absolutely clear, I'm not advocating that everyone quit. That wouldn't make sense. But ultimately, if you're not satisfied and you see that there's something else out there for you, you got to take that plunge into something else. Because the worst thing that can happen is 50 years from now, 30 years from now, you look back and you're like, man, I should have done X, Y, and Z. Rejection is better than regret. Okay? So what you need to do to get out, and this is coming from years of business, running remote teams, millions of dollars in revenue, etc. You actually have to find a new mission. You have to, because your motivation will fade. I'm telling you right now, the motivation that you have will come and go. When you're tired, things happen, stress, etc., it's going to happen. But your mission is what's going to dictate your success. So what you need to do is find a North Star. That's what I call it. Anything, whatever it is, whether it's saving puppies or going after Bengal tiger, whatever. But once you find that North Star, it's something for you to actually focus on. And when you can actually focus on something, that's when you find the vehicle to get you there. Because the vehicle can change. It could be some passive income. It could be investments, day trading, whatever it is. That always changes with the times. But you have to have a mission that keeps you consistent. So I hope you actually found some value with this. This is what I needed to do. I had to come to the realization that, you know what, I just don't see myself in this career for the next 10 years, so why am I here for another 10 minutes? And I actually took that plunge, but for you to do the same and to get over that, I guess, the comfort zone, find something you're passionate about, and you may not be passionate immediately, but find something that you can become passionate about. And the analogy would be like a dog chewing on a bone where you just keep gnawing on it and you can't stop. that's what will end up happening. So this applies to all fields, whether you're in law enforcement, military, corporate America, it doesn't matter what it is. I hope you found some value for this, and I'll catch you on the actual next video.